Gaucho's vlog.
Folk who lived through that had this idea of in the papal chapel having a Last Judgment painted on the altar wall, a place it was never put. Last Judgments are either in ceilings or outside the church or on the back wall, so a 5-minute reminder, the devil's lurking outside the door, you better be good. Never on an altar wall. And so here, to be contemplated by the papal court during Mass, during functions, this was done under his successor, Paul III. Paul III was no saint either, but he's an old man by that point, and said when this was unveiled, he fell on his knees and said, "Oh Lord, forgive me my sins and remember my good works." So you see, to do this, the whole back wall was completely destroyed. All the frescoes that were there were destroyed, and 2 windows were bricked up in order to make it. So here we have Michelangelo's 30s, 33 to 37. Here he's 60 to 65. By then, you know, the human body, which looks so beautiful, voluptuous, but not sexy. It's not that. This represents the reflection of God. So here we have these unborn souls here, the new youth. Probably that's what they represent. But here in late life, it's almost like it's a sin, you see. And there's something really pessimistic about it. It's not a beautiful composition at all. And here we have the angels awakening the dead with great fury. Here's its bodies coming out from the grave, some of its skeletons getting their flesh back on. With Michelangelo, you must remember that he was born into this style of painting, completely beautiful, but completely artificial. They look like chess figures, and that goes for all of these paintings. These were done when Michelangelo was about 5 years old. And in fact, this scene was painted by his future teacher, Ghirlandaio. You see, this whole chapel is Florentine, except 2 frescoes, but everybody in there was a Florentine, no Roman painters. Lorenzo de' Medici had sent down his painters to Sixtus IV when the chapel was being done. So all of this to say, Michelangelo is born into this style, and he breaks away from this by giving us this energy and movement. You see, in the early Renaissance, this was looked upon as vulgar, but when we get Leonardo, Michelangelo doing it, they can pull it off and make it beautiful. Alberti tells us in the early Renaissance, we don't want figures with histrionic gestures like cheap street actors. But that's all the Last Supper by Leonardo is. You see, Leonardo's Last Supper was revolutionary, not because he was using a new type of paint, but rather he chose a different moment. You see, all the Last Suppers, you see the apostles are chit-chatting with Christ in the middle. In this one, Christ has said, "This night one of you shall betray me," and everybody's like that. So there's a sense of frozen movement. And just think about it. The ancient Greeks had the gymnasium where they could go and see nude wrestlers. So they would go, they'd make 20, 30, 40 sketches before they could get that down on paper. But Greek statuary, and the Hellenistic statuary, is frozen movement. And so Michelangelo was fascinated by this. Michelangelo was dissecting bodies when he was 18 and 19 years old, so he knew the human skeleton first, the muscles, and then the skin, not the other way around as the Flemish painters did up until the time of Rubens. So here, when you see Michelangelo, I'm saying this, but you always have to think about the weight. Some of these figures are full of lace, they're flying up. Look at these 2, they're being dragged up on rosary beads here. So we have this different kind of weight. But the most telling thing is over here, you see, when you see these figures here, they tell us how heavy that column is that Christ was whipped upon. It's going through space, not because it's doing anything, but the muscles of the angels are showing us this. And we're spoiled by the camera. We don't think about this, but it would take an artist that 20, 30, 40 sketches to get this down. But here, not only that, but Michelangelo with his nude figures is able to imagine the human body flying. It's not swimming, it's not buoyant in water there. And unlike the camera, it can twist that figure this way and that way. So it's calligraphy, it's choreography. And this is what's so marvelous. Highly prized here was this understated beauty. It's not an overly athletic body, but Apollo is very majestic. Byron in Childe Harold's Pilgrimage says that he actually has the sun in its brows and its shoulders. And it has the anthroposa, which is something we find in all the ancient works, where if you took a line through the knees, the hips, and the shoulder, they would all be at different angles. And there's this twist in the body, something that is copied later on by all the neoclassicists, Michelangelo included. By then, the gods have decided to help the Greeks, and they want the Greeks to win. So they send snakes to silence their sons. The Trojans think that this is divine displeasure because he's done something so sacrilegious as to throw this javelin against a religious offering. So to protect the religious offering, they take it to the walls of Troy. We know what happens during the night. The Greeks went on the levee and put the Trojans to the sword. So Michelangelo tried more and more to learn the lesson of this and Spain was so great, the war parts now we use to go to the locations. So many ships that got exactly on the table. In a group of Americans from North Carolina, commissioned the statue of George Washington.
The biggest cup in the world.
Does not belong to the body.
That's Cleopatra.
Much of it doesn't exist in nature any longer. So you see there's so much marble in Rome to decorate all of our churches and the palaces of Rome, the Vatican, the Florence. Go to the cities of Europe to find marble. Just amazing. This vase over here is not ancient. You see over here, your left, was a piece of stone was discovered in the 1700s and was turned into a vase. In some cases, they don't even know where the stone came from. If you go to Turkey, to Teos, you see a lake, which was a former Roman port. A ship. And so here it was found somewhere.
Oh my God.
All of these being rediscovered. It took about 3 years to clean all of them. It was a surprise, amazing. But you see, remember, if this had been done in tempera paint, it would be just the ghost of it. We have a little bit of wall decoration in the window. That is the Sistine Chapel outside, and you can see how we have light outside to keep down the heat inside, because we now have air conditioning inside the chapel itself. These are